All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know how we get down here. We get right to the point and we make it with concerted effort. This is our role, is to bring people on that just help you get through the moment, help you realize that you're not alone. Whatever it is you're going through in life, you're not going through it alone. Today, I have Edwin Carrion, who is about to redefine, and I know I've said this in the past, but I've meant it then and I mean it now because this is what this show has been always about. He's about to redefine the whole term of serial entrepreneurship, all right? When it comes to feeling things out, making sure you're making the right moves, all of that. He has an extensive background in entrepreneurship and really has taught, even just down and doing research from the show, Edwin just taught me a lot in terms of what we can do, what is possible based on your background, all that kind of stuff. So before I make the intro too long, welcome to the show, Edwin. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing awesome, Aswan. Thank you for having me here, and to everybody listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever part of the world you're listening. And stay tuned until the end because today I'm gonna do something that I barely do, which is give something away to all the listeners that only my paid clients get. So stay until the end so you could get that
Well,
free
there we
gift.
go again. Listen, listeners. Again, we have someone else coming on. I didn't even know this. This is brand new, but you're not the only one. But people have come on and have offered the listeners things. So I definitely appreciate. I don't take these moments for granted, man. So I definitely appreciate that. So
Oh
Edwin,
my,
you refer to yourself as a God-made millionaire, and I got to tell you, I love the term. I love how it kind of hits and the way you kind of attract people in your world by using that phrase in general. And you have a military background, you have done things in the past that have led you to make it. And so you have to really depend on yourself and learn things that you may not pick up in the school system. So the best way I think to start off is to kind of talk a little bit about your background, where you're from, your military background, and we'll kind of go from there, man.
yes, thank you. So was born in Quito, Ecuador, raised by a single mother.
Hmm.
Lived in a very humble home, so I come from very humble beginnings. And I had the opportunity uh, of coming to the United States when I was 12 years old. And one of the things that I always wanted in my life was to be in the military, to wear that uniform, right? So what better place to do it that in the United States, and what better branch to do it that with the Marine Corps, what the best of the best. But I always knew I wanted to be successful. I always knew I was going to amount to something in my life, especially coming from a humble beginnings. I was hungry for success. And just when I left the Marine Corps, that's when I started my first major company.
Hmm. Now well, the company, it was real estate, right? Was it?
Yes, it was real
Yeah.
estate development.
Right. So with real estate development, it's not easy to break into. I know that for a fact. It's not easy to break into. Can you just go in a little bit about some of the lessons that you may have learned throughout your time in the Marine Corps that made it so you kind of had the confidence to go into that world? And then when you're going through those trials and tribulations, how are you seeing, or maybe going back to the lessons that you had in the past when it comes to like just military training? How do those kind of apply to the business and the way you grow and things like that?
Yes. A couple of things. Number one, as I was being raised by my mother,
Hmm.
she instilled very good values in me. She instilled the values of faith, honoring God. She instilled the values of being a person of, that keeps their word, that, does what they say they're going to do,
Right.
not being afraid of things. But while I was in the Marine Corps, like I know those values that became a lot stronger because um, I was alone. I was a young kid in the military,
Hmm.
18 years old, in boot camp. So I got closer to God, going to church every Sunday because I stopped doing that for a while I was growing up as a teenager. So I kind of started getting closer to God. And when you're alone, that's the moments that you start getting closer to your faith, right?
Hmm.
From there on, the Marine Corps also instilled these like words that became part of who I am today, which is the honor, the courage, the commitment, which are the same values that my mom instilled in me in different ways of telling me, hey, when you say something that you're going to do something, do it. That's having honor.
Right.
Don't be afraid of taking risks or doing something. That's courage.
Right.
And you do something, you do until you finish it. Whatever you start, you finish it. That's commitment. So
Absolutely.
kind of like those things got ingrained. And as I became older and as I became wiser,
Hmm.
I understood that those values were ingrained in me since I was very little. I just didn't know how to define those. Like a lot of us don't know how to define what we do on a daily basis means to us, right? Like for
Right.
example, to me, um, having a real estate development company means that I'm building somebody else's dream. And to me, that business becomes a wealth creation business, a wealth creation legacy. So we have to kind of like, with time, we start realizing what certain things mean and how can we put that in one word.
Right. So when you say real estate development, is it like what would be the difference between just a like I guess a commercial realtor or a residential realtor? Are you saying like you're kind of seeing the big picture and overseeing multiple things? Can you kind of walk us through a little bit?
Yes, no. So example. So I wanted to get out of the Marine. I was about to get out of the Marine Corps. I finished my 4.5 years,
Mhm.
and as a lot of young kids at 22 years old, we don't know what we want to do. I
Right.
was in the same situation. One of the things that I knew that I thought I wanted to do was go back into the government and become an FBI agent, a CIA agent, because I was surrounded by that
Yeah,
while
that
I
that
was
would
in the
seem like the
military.
normal transition. Like,
Yes,
oh, gotta go work government, right?
and I like that part, it was nice. And then my mom comes to me and she's like, you should become a developer. And just like you
Oh,
right
she
now,
said that.
I'm like, what is that? Like, I had no idea what that was, right? So
Right.
she goes to me, it's like, oh, it's simple. It's like buy land, build a house, and sell it. I'm like, oh my God, this is so easy. Like, I want to do it.
Right.
uh, you know,
And
and
that's I gotta pause you there because a lot of and I kind of alluded to this in the intro when it comes to making young people feel like they need to have some fancy education. You raised by a single mother, as you mentioned, in Ecuador, and she gave you probably the best career advice that you probably ever gotten in your life. And she put it in that simple terms: you buy land, you develop it, and you make money like that. That's it. I was raised by Caribbean parents as well, and it amazes me because my mother only has an associate's degree, and you would be amazed at the just great advice that comes from people that genuinely care about you, with
yes.
regardless of all of the fancy education and all that. So I just had to I want to make sure I made that point for the listeners as well.
Oh, yes, yes. And of course, uh, being a Marine, they
Mhm.
teach you that, you're unstoppable, you're like the best thing on earth, and you could do anything. So I'm like, of course I could do it. I'm out. So
Right.
come to find out, it wasn't as just buy land, build and sell it. But at the end of the day, humans, we love to make things complicated.
Hmm.
But real estate development, it is that simple. It is you buy land, you build it, and you sell it.
Hmm.
Um, so I got out of the Marine Corps, bought 2 pieces of land, built the first house, sold the other piece of land, flipped my money really fast. I'm like, wow, this is easy. Like I like this. I'm making money.
Right.
And in no time, I went from borrowing $100,000 because I had no money when I left the Marine Corps to building a $20 million worth of real estate assets
Hmm.
and having a high net worth in just like 4 years.
Right.
I was like on top of the world, 26 years old, over
Hmm.
$20 million in assets, living in $1 million house, driving like the nicest car you could think of.
Right.
I was on top of the world. And then all of a sudden, 2007 comes around, the real estate market crashes, and boom, I lost everything. I went bankrupt. So
Hmm.
to answer the question, what were the lessons that I learned was that, when you focus on the wrong thing, which to me at that moment, I was focusing on the money because I came from no money.
Right.
Uh, Money comes and goes really fast. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I got that, I made so much money, but I lost everything. And along the way, because I was so focused on the wrong thing, which was the money, I lost a lot more than that. I lost my time, my
Hmm.
4 years that I could never get back because I was working more than 60 hours per week. And
Right.
how many of us have worked that much in our lives, right? A lot of us have worked 60 hours per week just trying to achieve something.
Yeah.
But then I realized that I lost that time that I could never get back. I
Hmm.
lost my health. I lost my relationship with God. I lost really good friendships that I had because I was so consumed into becoming rich, becoming successful that I
Hmm.
wasn't really enjoying the ride to the top.
Now, well, first of all, thank you for your transparency and your authenticity and sharing that because I think that's very important for listeners as well to know. to know that money is, yes, it's important, but you really got to know how to use it. I mean, the book that gets mentioned on this show probably more often than my own book is Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. Over and over again, put your money into assets, not liabilities. And the reason
Yes.
I'm bringing that up is because if I'm not, you're in Miami, correct? Were you in
Yeah.
Miami?
Well, right now I'm coming to you live from Cali, Colombia, South America, because that's where I've been living for the past year.
Right. But when you were buying land, was this just in
Miami, Florida,
Florida? Yeah,
all in
yeah,
Miami,
that's why
Florida.
I'm kind of curious, like, because I've been to Miami several times and it's hard to figure out where the land is because I guess it looks so overpriced. Because can you kind of walk us through your process in terms of finding the land, buying it, and then surveying it and what you did to make it a successful success so quick? Obviously, looking back now, you'd have obviously spent your money in different ways, but you made a success based on buying the land and then selling and things like that.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let me get back to that to answer that
Okay.
question. How do I, one of the things that I learned early on was instead of focusing in Miami, because Miami is so big,
Yeah.
I focus in one specific neighborhood in Miami. And
Ah.
the one specific neighborhood in Miami for me at that time when I left the Marine Corps was the Goulds Perrine area.
Uh-huh.
It was an area where back in the day, Hurricane Andrew, when it hit Miami,
Right.
it pretty much like took away a bunch of houses. So there was a lot of land in the area.
Oh,
So, to me, it was a huge opportunity to go
yeah.
in there and redevelop that whole area, put in a bunch of new houses. And
Right.
I was able to build like over 100 homes in a matter of all that time,
Yeah.
just by buying up lots. And then I started meeting new people, new land flippers that they knew that I was buying land. And whenever they say, hey, Edwin, I have a piece of parcel in this area, I
Mhm.
didn't even have to go and look at it because I already knew, because I knew every street, I knew every avenue by memory,
Right.
that the
Right.
moment that they told me, hey, is this property? I'm like, okay, that's a 15,000 square foot lot, vacant. Okay, I want it. I don't even have to go look at it, sign a
Right.
contract. Yes, I got it.
Got it.
And I already knew how much I was paying for it. So the guys knew that all they had to put is 5, 10 grand on top and it will be mine.
Oh,
And I was just buying them just like that, left and right. And I was buying them and I was also flipping them to some investors that I had, and I was building for them.
mhm.
And we just kept grinding and moving as fast as I could.
Oh man, that's awesome. And it takes me to another point that the listeners, you really have to get a hold of this, is you just got to know your shit. All right. And so many, you got to know exactly. Like, I love the fact that people would call you. You can say the square footage, you can get it on the phone because, again, one of the reasons the show is called Move Swiftly is because when you're talking business, we don't have 2, 3 weeks. We have this phone call right now, know it, get it done, get the contract signed, and let's get business moving. That's how it has to happen. And it's not going to happen for you if you're not constantly studying your craft, getting better at your craft. And then when you run into investors, when you run into people that can potentially do a deal with you, if you're not ready over the phone, hey, they're on to something else. All right. It's important. It's important that you know your shit.
And that's why I love this saying, which is, you have to be the shark in the pond,
Yeah.
not small fish in the ocean.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so I don't know. Well, thank you for sharing that quick business lesson there. But I do want to get back to because I know that feeling of losing everything. I went bankrupt, lost my car. The car I was sleeping out of eventually got repossessed. Had no money to pay a phone bill. I like had nothing. So I know that feeling, and I had to bounce back, working a sales job at LA Fitness and all that other stuff. Another story for another day. But the regular listeners have heard it. With you now, you had mentioned something that I think is very, very valuable is that you developed your relationship with God again. You got to know, how important having faith is, and that is what led you to bouncing back and developing into the businessman you are now. So I'll let you kind of share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So at that time, I used to call myself a self-made millionaire, but then
Oh,
after losing everything and really not giving the praise to all the people that helped me get to where I got to,
right.
I realized that no man on earth is ever a self-made millionaire, because in order for us to get to a level of success, we need help from other people. And that's when I realized, because I went back into living in one of the houses that I was building, those low income houses that I was building for other people.
Mm-hmm.
I got back into driving the truck that I gave my foreman, and I was,
Oh, man.
tell the story
Humbling.
because
It's
it
humbling.
was so bad that I realized that I was so cheap at that time for them that I didn't value them, but that I didn't even put like electric windows. I had to do like the roll up windows for them. I'm like, man, God, why did I do that? You know, so I kind of like got me thinking, I got me to value people more because of that, to really give the praise to them and understand that I am where I am and I could be successful if I always continue valuing other people.
Mm-hmm.
So sure enough, you know, just like you did probably for a while when we went bankrupt and we lost it all, you know, we started talking to ourselves negative and thinking that we're losers, we're never going to make anything.
Mm-hmm.
This, you know, we did it once, it's never going to come back again.
The
I was very fortunate
pity
enough to
party
go to,
is loud.
yeah, I was very fortunate to go to a seminar. And
Mm-hmm.
in that seminar, it shifted my mindset. And it shifted my mindset that if I did it once, I could do it again. And then I came back. And when I came back and I opened my mind for opportunities. And sure enough, within a couple of weeks, a brand new business opportunity came my way. It was into the gold buying business.
Mm-hmm.
And I started that company. I raised $300,000. So for any entrepreneur listening today, if you ask me, do you need money to start a business? You do need the money. But the question is that you don't have to have the money. You know, always remember that you don't have to have the money. I didn't have the money. I
Mm-hmm.
was able to raise $300,000 and take that company to over $15 million worth of revenues in just a couple of years. Created a franchise model, had 14 stores throughout the United States, and I was working 5 hours per week, making like around $1 million profit per month. And you know, that's how lives are changed and shift in
Mm-hmm.
one moment. And that's the way that I do. Like whenever I have the people that I mentor and the people that are part of my inner circles, I always make sure that we do a couple of things. We talk about scaling companies and how do we scale properly so
Mm-hmm.
the same thing that happened to me doesn't happen to them. But also, how do we have those shifts on the mind, because the mind is so strong that it could keep us down if we really let it.
So, what was it about the seminar that that was able to strike a lot of chords with you?
It was the one thing, like I said, it was like a 3 day seminar.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing was the thing that I mentioned again a minute ago, which is that if I did it once, I could do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all I needed for that weekend.
Ah, yeah,
I
I
needed
can
to
see that.
understand that
Sometimes
I
reinforce.
did it once, and there's no reason that I could tell myself that I can't do it again. If I did it once, I could do it again, and I could do it over and over and over again.
Right. All right. So gold buying. I'm really, really curious about hearing about this venture because as I hear gold buying, I guess I'm thinking of even the trophy you have here. You have the book by for it. Oh,
So
kind
yeah,
of.
I wrote my own book, which is
Yeah.
called Secrets of the Millionaire Gold Buyer.
Yeah. So how does that work though? Is it for jewelry stores? Is it for like what are some of the ins and outs of when it comes to gold buying and then scaling it to where you create a franchise model for it? Because this is, I'll tell you now, this is over 800 episode show. You are the first person that has come on here and talked about gold buying and was able to build something pretty significant with that.
Well, if you really think about gold, the gold business, right? The gold business has been around for over hundreds of
Yeah.
years. Like
Right.
if we go back into before the currency, everything was traded based on gold and silver.
Yeah.
So it's always been a commodity that's been around. You know, the dollar was backed by the gold.
Mhm.
So when my business partner at that time came to me, he's like, Edwin, I have a great business opportunity. Do you have any money? The one thing that I learned on that event was also never pass out on goodness on business opportunities,
Right.
of listening into business opportunities. So
Right.
when I told him I have some money, tell me. So he told me about it. I'm like, oh, this makes sense. I like it. So the business was we buy scrap gold. For
Mhm.
example, your wife or your girlfriend has jewelry from an ex-boyfriend, or maybe
Right.
she lost an earring and she keeps one earring.
Yeah.
Uh, we'll buy that, we melt it down, and then we sell it to a jewelry company so they could create new jewelry. That was the business.
I gotta give you I gotta give you a clap for that one. I love it because I'm a big reader and I think about The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, and turning lead into gold, and it's a similar concept. You break up with
Yes,
the boyfriend or some jewelry. A lot of ladies who buy a lot of jewelry, you just throw it away. You take it and you see value in this. You melt it out and
yes,
you sell it back to the jewelry stores because that's just again all mindset. And then you were in that place where you have nothing. You have been bankrupt. You're talking about your drivers and you're having to roll out the windows. That mindset, you receive everything. That's
yes.
excellent, man.
No, no, and then from there, um, we go back and think and look at things a little bit differently.
Hmm.
At that moment in 2008, the economy was in a recession.
Yeah.
So everybody needed money. So the one thing that we did is we created a 3W model, which is win, win, win.
Hmm.
The people won because they needed money. They were coming to us selling their broken and unwanted jewelry, and we were giving them money for it in
Hmm.
order to pay whatever bills they needed at that time.
Hmm.
We were making money, so that was the second win,
Hmm.
because by buying it at a discounted price, we're able to flip it and make money. And the third win was that by recycling all these precious metals, we're
Hmm.
helping the environment. Now we didn't have to go out there and mine for
Hmm.
more gold or more silver. We're helping the environment. So it was a triple win. And
Hmm.
that's one of the things that I liked about this business.
So how were you able to develop the relationships with the jewelry stores? Were they just, matter of fact, just cold reaching out to them and things like that?
Yes, yes, we called out, we found out, who are the big buyers in the market.
Hmm.
Refineries are another big buyer of the market. So you
Right.
could take thousands of kilos a day and they'll buy it from you, because that goes back into the market. And those are the ones that hold the physical gold for the people that buy gold on the stock market, on the
Hmm.
stock exchange, on paper. So, there's people that buy the physical, there's people that buy the paper.
Okay.
So whenever you buy the paper, there has to be something that backs that up. So we were the ones that were bringing that jewelry, that physical gold,
Right.
to the refinery, so they are able to sell it on the paper market.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the franchising model, however, because a lot of people they think franchising is actually has to be a brick and mortar store and like a physical location. Walk
Yes.
us through like your process in terms of making the decision to turn it into a franchise model, because that's something that not, especially nowadays with the internet and the fact that people don't, how what was the thought process behind that?
Okay. So our first thing was that when we opened our first brick and mortar store, we opened our first store and it was working very good. It started working good. Then we opened up three more. So we had four. All of a sudden, we have 5, 6 stores, and then we ran out of capital to continue opening up stores.
Right.
So there was two choices that we had to make at that time. Number one was go out and raise capital so we could open up more stores.
Hmm.
Or number two, I met this one guy somewhere, somehow, and he's like, "Hey, you have a great business model. You should franchise it." So I
Hmm.
asked him, what does it mean? He's like, you already have 2 stores. All you got to do is sell them the business model. I'm like, oh, I like this.
Yeah.
And that's how franchising got started. And we went out there and we understood that franchising works. Franchising helps you scale rapidly without you having to invest capital out of your own pocket. So if you have a good proven business model, you're
Hmm.
able to convert that into a franchise and sell that to other people. And
Yeah.
that's a business opportunity that people want that. So
Right.
not everybody wants to figure out how to start a business. Other people just want, okay, I want to start a business that is doing good, that has a good reputation, that I could just tag along with.
Exactly, exactly. We've had several franchise experts on the show, just speaking in terms of, you got to have your heart in it and you got to really know you as the franchisor. You can't just bring in anybody. There's a vetting process, obviously, but the system, having that system that's working harder for you can take a whole lot of problems away from, what you would have had to do if you had to start it up on your own and things like that. So,
Yes, yes.
you're, did you want to say something?
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that we did this time around was that we gave the opportunity to a lot of our employees to, after working with us for a certain period of time, to open up their own franchise, and we will finance them.
Yeah, that's an excellent model too, because like you mentioned, you had already gone through what other employees had saw about you. So it turns out to be a blessing that you had to move back into that home and drive what your drivers drove and things like that. So the
Yes.
the thing is now you're a success and you were, like you said, you were able to turn it into $50 million. What would you say now was the difference between now you made another success and now how are you investing your money now versus when you made the business before a success? Could you walk us through now your mindset where it's like, I'm back on my feet, I'm back to being self-made man and things like that. All right, I'm gonna do it right this time. Can you walk us through kind of the moments and the thereafter when you were a success?
Yeah, I went to the two extremes, right? The first
Yeah.
extreme was I was extremely
Yeah.
over leveraged. I
Yeah.
was extremely over leveraged. Everything that I did was in debt. So that's why when the market shift, I lost everything.
Right.
Second time around, I make sure that I had no leverage whatsoever. I'm like, I make sure that everything is cash. The
Yeah.
house, the cars, everything is cash. And it
Yeah.
worked very well for a long time.
Hmm.
until the moment that you decided to continue growing, to continue
Huh.
moving up. And it got stuck. I'm like, I wasn't able to buy a car on credit because I didn't use my credit for like 7 years. I wasn't able to buy another house or a second house or third house on credit because I didn't have no credit history, because everything since 2008 to 2015, 16, actually 17,
Right.
2017 was
Right.
cash. It was
Yeah.
all cash. The houses, the cars,
Oh
everything was
man.
cash,
Wow.
which it was a good thing because I was living financially free,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand that in the United States, debt is good.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I learned was that 30%, having between 30 to 40% of debt is always good,
Mhm.
because it's going to give you opportunities when there are shifts in the markets, when there are transfers of generational wealth, for you
Mhm.
to take advantage of things. If you have that credit history, if you have the credit available to be able to jump on those opportunities.
Right.
Now you're also leveraging cheap money, meaning that during the pandemic, I don't know if you remember, we had interest rates of 2 to 4%, more or less.
Yeah.
Those are where a lot of generational wealth got transferred, because if you were able to acquire things on credit, you were getting pretty much almost free money. You were
Exactly.
getting
I
things
remember
for
this.
free,
I
because
remember, right.
if I was going to buy a house for $1 million, I either had to put $1 million out of my own pocket, or get this on credit at a 3% interest rate and continue making 10, 20%
Payments. Right.
interest rate on my cash,
Right.
and just have that paid by itself.
Right.
So a good friend of mine told me that, having debt is okay as
Mm.
long as you're not too over leveraged, like I was the first time around. But
Right.
having no debt is no good as well, because you want to have a little bit of debt. So
Right.
that's where I am in my transition of life right now, having enough debt that if all my sources of income were to completely cease today,
Hmm.
I'm still able to survive. I'm still able to maintain the things that I have, but also knowing that if I'm running a business and 50% of the revenue drops today, my business is still able to survive.
Right. And well, you kind of already mentioned this when you were talking. You mentioned the term generational wealth. And as you're coming into this knowledge and you're learning how to obviously manage your money better and manage your business and find that right mix, what are some of the things that you're doing to create generational wealth to where the people coming up behind you, whether it's your employees, whether it's your kids or your wife or whatever, how are you able to kind of make it so that they're okay as you're going out and looking for the next venture and building this and building that?
Yes. Number one to me, I think the best thing is leaving them the one thing that nobody could ever take away from them, which is the knowledge. And I think that's the biggest shift of generational wealth you could leave to your kids.
You're
Is
sitting there giving me goosebumps right now. I mean that that answer, and I love that answer. And I hate to cut you off there, but I do have to make that point. The knowledge is worth so much, guys. So many of you guys get into it. So I'm gonna just pay and leave money in here, but the knowledge, the intellectual property that my nephew can now, if God forbid something happens to me, my nephew can now pick up one of these as an athlete and say, "This is what my uncle wrote. It. This is what he learned when he was playing." That knowledge, it is evergreen. It's evergreen, guys. You're never
yes.
gonna like evergreen is gonna go generations upon generations upon generations. So I'm you can't see it here, but I'm definitely getting goosebumps in terms of, because I love the fact that you started with knowledge. Knowledge is so important, man.
Yes, yes. It's definitely the knowledge, right? Look, nobody could ever take away. If I give them $1 million, they could go out and spend it in a day, in a week.
Mm-hmm.
But that knowledge for them to always continue surviving, continue making things, nobody could take that away from them. The beautiful thing about that is that as you're teaching people to become successful, what they're going to do is they're going to continue teaching others to do the same.
Yeah,
And that's the generational wealth, right?
yeah.
Wealth is not only measuring how much money you have, but I think it's measuring a lot of other things, of the type of person that you are, the type of human being that you are, how
Mm-hmm.
you take care of other people, how you take care of your parents and your own body and everything else. So
Mm-hmm.
I teach my kids that. And number two is always to have God as number one in their life. But
Mm-hmm.
now, once we go into the material things, is teach them that they're able to have anything that they want if they work hard for it. Because I don't want them to be those kids that, now we have a lot of kids that, they're entitled. I don't want them to be entitled. So they know that what we have is my wife's and I, and it's none of that is theirs, that they're going to have to work for their own stuff as they grow up. Now, do they have their university paid for? Yes, 100% they have the university paid for.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to take care of them as they grow up if they want to start their own business? Yes. I will take care of that for them. But
Right.
that's like my generational wealth for them. It's kind of like leaving them on a position where they're going to be able to do things on their own and they don't have to rely on other people to have that.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, so often too, sometimes I teach, so I'm around this a lot of times. Is sometimes kids can feel like because my parents are taking care of me, there's an entitlement, and kids don't feel like, oh, well, you didn't earn it or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with success. There's no penalties for success. If you are blessed
Yeah.
enough to have parents that have taken care of your college and taken care of your business and things like that, take advantage. Opportunities. Actually, I just put out an article yesterday between is talking about the difference between helping and creating opportunities. It's your job to take advantage of opportunities. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're entitled because you have a situation where whether it's an uncle, whether it's a dad, whether it's a mother, whoever it is taking care of you. You just have to do what you have to do to take advantage of these opportunities. So all that being said, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just tell people a little bit about what's next, what you plan on building in the future, and how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in hearing more?
Yes, yes. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So what's next? I've been very fortunate enough. One of my goals a couple of years ago was to inspire as many entrepreneurs, to help as many entrepreneurs to scale their companies uh, to the 8 figures, just like I have done it, and to live a good life. Because at the end of the day, it's not about making money, but it's about what is the life that you're living? Are you living the life of your dreams? I always put this example that if you're laying down in your deathbed, are you going to look back in your life and say, I should have done this, I could have done that? Or you're gonna say, like I'm gonna say, wow, Edwin, you had such an awesome life. You did everything you wanted to do. You became a pilot, you race supercars, you traveled the world, you lived in different countries, you
Mhm.
had the kids that you wanted, you married the wife that you wanted.
Mhm.
So are you gonna say that? And that's what I want people to do, to stop living, walking around like zombies, but to really start living the life that they always desire, because we could all have that.
Mhm.
Uh, and along with that, that's how I teach them in my inner circles and my programs and all the things that I teach.
Right.
So that's why I bring them.
Now, are the programs, how did the programs run? Is it run like masterminds? Is it run like people can reach out to you on a Facebook group? How does it?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no. So we have different programs. We have masterminds, we have one-on-ones.
Mhm.
I work with a lot of entrepreneurs one-on-ones. That's, I think, where I see the biggest shift
Right.
of success, of rapid success. It's not the same thing, working on this group environment as working with somebody one-on-one. But I understand not everybody is on the same income level to be able to afford that education. So, we have to come up with creative ways of how can we give access to everybody to have the same information.
Right.
So we create programs, we create that. But the best thing is reach out to me, social media.
Mhm.
But to do what I promised today, to give the free gift that only my
Oh yeah,
paid,
yeah, yeah. We got to
yeah,
do that. No, man,
let's
I
go
was I
back
was
to
so into
that.
the conversation, but I forgot. Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Let's go back to that. So look, just send me a message. Say move swiftly
Uh-huh.
on the DM. Send me a DM. Say move swiftly,
On
and I'm
is it
gonna give
Instagram?
you.
A DM
Yeah,
on
on
it.
Instagram. Send it to me on Instagram, Edwin Carrion 78. Move swiftly, and you'll get your free gift, which is a lot of things a lot of my paid clients get.
Mhm.
So be on the lookout for that.
Oh man, well, I'll speak for the listeners and say we definitely appreciate that. And again, listeners, that bring a horse to water, you can't make them drink. We're sitting here giving you free products that people would pay for. You've got to take advantage of it. Take advantage, just like I was talking about in regards to taking advantage of opportunities. When someone gives you that opportunity, puts an opportunity out there, do not be that one that doesn't take advantage of it. That's very, very important aspect to this. So all that being said, Edwin, the way I close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are back in, I'd say, 25, 21, early 20s, had all this money the day that it all went crashing down for you. Pretend that version of Edwin has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
Um, give Edwin some words of encouragement. Hey, uh, put everything on God's hands, and He'll make it happen for you.
Mhm.
And take action as much as you can.
Nothing else to say after that. Just put it in God's hands. And for for the newer listeners, the reason I do close out the show with that question is because I want to be talking directly to you. If you are going through that situation, if you're in a situation where just not going according to plan, where you lost everything, simply put it in God's hands, and He'll take care of you regardless. He's gonna love you regardless. He's that's consistent, the most consistent thing. out there, period. So having that faith is so important. Everyone out there, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.